Here we go. Uh-oh. I got it. Oh, my God, Brandon. That's the FCS Checkdown. One day we'll get this right. Nate McCreary, Brandon Joseph in the FCS Checkdown. Hey, go give FCS _24/7 a follow. He's already in the chat doing his thing, and looks like a new channel, maybe a new content. We always want to support our friends over that are doing the FCS content and all that good stuff. So what's up, Brandon Haddock in the chat? Brandon Joseph, can you hear me okay, Brandon?
I got you.
Okay, good. 5x5. Here we go. I know we are both in Georgia, in the northern Georgia area, and we both have like some massive thunderstorms that are popping off. What's up, Steve Hotchkiss? So if something happens, we'll do our best to get back on as time allows. But so far, so good. Brandon, we're a week from college football. How the heck are you?
We're mere days from college football.
Yes, days
Some way,
from
shape,
college
or form,
football.
we're days away from week 0. So we are past week -1. Now we're on to week 0.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. Well, let's go ahead and get to, oh, by the way, one of the things, well, I guess I should go here first. One of the things we're going to do today is... Happy birthday, Ron Jackson. It is his birthday, and he is being taken out by his wife and all that good stuff. There you go, Ron. Congratulations on your birthday. And so Coach Ron will not be here. It'll be me and Brandon holding down the fort as we talk about some stuff that is going on in the FCS. So here's what's ahead. We're going to go around the FCS, all the good news and all that good stuff. Missouri Valley football deep dive tonight, Brandon. We're going to look at the FCS rivalry games real quickly and then have our FCS big question, which these are becoming more difficult to come up with, honestly, as we
get to
go.
the season, they will lend themselves to their own big question.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, by the way, like and subscribe. We want to thank so much Kendra Sheehan for joining last week. She took a lot of my attention because she's such a dynamic person and has such great knowledge. And I forgot to mention, do like and subscribe to the show. It really helps out. We're hitting 500 views per show, which is great. We want to have 500 subscriptions so we can go ahead and maybe monetize a little bit. Hey, what's up, Steve McKenzie? We want to monetize and honestly give back to you guys and make sure we're doing some giveaways and all that good stuff is kind of the idea of the show, and do some things for the FCS fan base that doesn't get I guess the options. You just don't see it. And I love what John Gruden's doing down there with his open boxes stuff, but I wonder where all that FCS stuff goes. We could use it. Coach Gruden. We could use it, producer Jake down there. So, yeah, anyway, do like and subscribe. We're trying to bring positive attention to the FCS and all that good stuff. First thing we want to talk about, Brandon, is the NCAA House settlement has revealed that there are going to be several players that are now going to be eligible for play in the FCS. That's the first thing we're going to hit. And the players that are eligible... Here we go. Oh, I didn't really. Oh, wait. I didn't think this one through. Hang on. There we go. And I'll make this a little bit smaller. Patrick McQuaid from Villanova, is going to be on the available. Also, Jawan Northington from Murray State. AJ Pena from Rhode Island. Declan Williams from UIW. By the way, his dad was Mitch Williams. Remember Mitch Williams, the Wild Thing for the Phillies? That's his son, Declan Williams. And then Kelby Givens there for Southern, and many, many more are being announced. So it's kind of, once again, the showing how bad NCAA has managed things. They've had to turn to this House settlement suit and all this other stuff because of how terrible it's gotten. And now you got a 5th year of eligibility. And these players, big players, Brandon, Like Patrick McQuaid getting another shot at the QB1 spot there at Villanova.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. How much does Villanova, how much was Villanova involved in this? Like, I mean, you go through spring ball and you don't have Pat McQuaid. Now all of a sudden he's granted fall camp. Weeks before, 3 weeks before you play your first game, he's granted eligibility. So, I mean, for Villanova, you have to feel happy about that. But you have other guys and you had other quarterbacks step up and try to become leaders in that role. And all of a sudden, the old guy gets grandfathered back in. And you have to believe that, due to familiarity of the offense, due to, what he has accomplished at Villanova, he's going to probably get the nod to start. And, I don't know where the NCAA goes with this. I mean, this is just lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, and it varies. Some are granted on actual legal grounds. Some are granted in hometowns by judges who may or may not have a allegiance to the fan base or ties to the university. But at the end of the day, these preliminary injunctions that are being granted are still being granted. And a lot of these times, like if you don't get emergency relief, which is really tough to do in some jurisdictions, you're looking at midway through the season or after the season to settle this. And at the NCAA's point, it's just like, pick the battles you can win. You've shown that you can't win these battles. Yeah. Why are you fighting this? And to the question that's going on in there, he has to be QB1. He has to be the guy because he was the guy last year and led him to the semifinals. So barring the fact that, he gets injured, which we don't want to see, he is the guy. And, I don't know how that quarterback room necessarily reacts to that because, I get the belief that he wants to be, they may have expected to it or other people, but other people sat in that room and were given an opportunity to be QB1 and expected potentially that they would be the guy there. So that changes the dynamic in that room.
Are you a little surprised how late this is coming in the whole, I mean, why couldn't this happen in June?
I think, again, a lot of those times, these legal cases, you wait on precedent. You need some level of precedent, and then you can file your request for injunction for relief or preliminary injunction. You file that based on precedent and say, hey, my guy should be eligible because this guy won a case. So it's whoever jumps first, and you have to create the strong legal foundation for that to jump first because he who jumps first will most likely have the chance to lose. But if he is successful, which we have seen people be successful in these, that you have to, you can use those cases as precedent and at least get that injunction, that temporary injunction, and then you kick the can down the road.
One of the things I want to do is just kind of go through. We know Pat McQuaid threw for 3,092 yards and 24 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions last year. He was really the spotlight player. But I wanted to talk about some of these other players that are coming back and are going to have an impact. Murray State's running back Juwan Northington, 5th season, rushed for 232 yards versus Indiana State in a single game, making him the first racer rusher to have more than 200 yards in a single game since 2011. He had over 1,970 career rushing yards, 15 touchdowns. He caught his first receiving touchdown in 2025. He'll have an impact there for Murray State. URI's A.J. Pena, we called his name, Brandon, a lot last year. He was a standout linebacker, edge rusher for the Rams. He finished his legendary season last year with a program all-time leading career sacks, 38 tackles. He's with 65 and a half tackles for loss, 65 and a half. He's going to add to those numbers. He was the 2025 CAA Defensive Player of the Year and 2-time All-American. He is back for URI. Could be a game changer. Incarnate Word linebacker Declan Williams transferred into UIW and was an immediate force. 62 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, earning him first-team All-Southland Conference honors in 2020. By 2025, he racked up 94 tackles, earning Conference Defensive Player of the Week honors and iconic pick 6 against Abilene Christian. He is, again, the son of former Phillies great Mitch Williams, the Wild Thing. And then 2025 HBCU FCS National Player of the Year watch list selection, Southern's D. defensive end Kelby Givens is back for the Jaguars, starting all 13 games in 2024 in 73 tackles, FCS high 27 and half tackles for loss, 12 sacks, 13 quarterback hurries. He also forced 3 fumbles, was a third-team All-American. So these are some big names, Brandon, that are coming back. And I know we're going to get to the AFCA Top 25 that got released, but no joke. These are some big guys that are coming back. Happy for them to get the nod for a chance to see show what they can do on the field for fifth year here, I guess is what all these guys are getting because of the house rules. And more to come.
Yeah, the important thing is, the most important position on the field is definitely quarterback. The second most position is guys who can get after the quarterback. So you have Pena, Givens, and then on that second tier, right below is probably Williams there as well. So these are guys that can have a direct impact on the outcome of games moving forward for teams that, UIW, Rhode Island, Villanova, that we expect to, be in contention for a conversation for Rhode Island. That's a huge piece you can get back defensively that could help you potentially win some very meaningful ball games.
Yeah. Interesting news out of URI is that Davin Farrell, who had off-season surgery, is still on the shelf, Brandon. They're not so sure he's going to be able to start week number 1. Recovering from off-season lower body surgery and is available for the season as uncertain to be available for the season opener. He's a redshirt senior, transfer from Virginia Tech. If we recall, the Rams established starter in 2025. He had a breakout year, 3,746 passing yards, 24 touchdowns. Suffered a foot injury late in 2025. His current status is up in the air as far as when he can return. Backups Tyler Budge, a Georgia Southern transfer, and Alex McClelland are taking the majority of first team snaps right now. So if anyone in the chat is part of that URI fan base, please let us know what you're hearing about Davin Farrell. But starting the season with your number 1 quarterback, a favorite in the conference, that's a tough way to get things underway.
Yeah, if I got to hold him out against Merrimack, I'll hold him out against Merrimack. I mean, if you got to hold him out against Temple too, that game, if you lose, means nothing. If he's healthy enough to play, sure, but he has to be at 100% for me to play him in a game versus Temple because we like Casey Keeler. Temple has not been historically a good football program. So if you feel, and coaches will have an honest look at themselves like, hey, Davin Farrell playing can help us win this game, and he's 100%, yeah. But if he isn't and he gets hurt further, you're costing yourself down the road. You can theoretically hold him out the first 2 weeks of the season and not lose any impact for this team moving forward and hopefully get him on the field against Elon on September the 12th. So if he's not 100%, there's no need to rush him back if you feel that he's close enough to get on the field by mid-September.
Yeah, good point, Brandon. Absolutely good point. More news out of the FCS and athletic director Steve, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Well, Uryazz confirmed in an exclusive interview with Front Office Sports the university's long-term goal is FBS membership. They're dumping a lot of money into Tarleton State, by the way, if I didn't mention. Tarleton State to the FBS, Brandon. They're putting a lot of money into it, over $200 million into the athletic facilities and infrastructure since 2020. They've got jumped, obviously, from Division II to Division I. This has not been something that they've kept secret. Is this the way to go about things if you're Tarleton State?
I mean, what's worse, the way they're going about this, saying that they want to be FBS or buying your way into a conference and forking over, $15 to $17 million because that's where you feel like you need to be because your fans are interested in your product or, you made promises to the fan base and the state legislature about, where your program is. I mean, I don't know if it's any better or worse. I mean, I think the end game is going to be will somebody what's the price to get in? Is it the $5 million to the NCAA and that's it? Or do you have to pay some sort of entry fee? I think for some conferences, they will look at, Tarleton State and go, okay, they fit. What's the harm in it? CUSA has shown that they will be very more acceptable in the moving teams up and in their conference. I think this would only be accelerated right now. I don't foresee this in the next 3 to 5 years, only because we have this, Senate bill that has been backburnered till the fall. Also, at that point, from the passage, I believe, or signing of the Senate bill, teams would basically have 6 months to make movements. The provision in the Power Five and the Power Four about moving up into the Power Four and having to be a 5-year independent would be held off for 6 months. So teams would have 6 months to make a decision. We believe there is legal ambiguity of, do you have to complete the move or can you just announce the move within that time frame?
Hmm.
That would be, so let's say Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina. Let's just pick those 4 schools. End up leaving the ACC. The expectation is the ACC would then backfill with Tulane, Memphis, UConn, and pick another school to maintain their team criteria. That would mean the American, for the most part, would have to backfill with potentially teams from CUSA or FCS teams at that point. So that's where I think we could see or Tarleton State, move up in there to the FBS in a quicker fashion. But again, I think that's, a little bit of a ways away from that hand being forced. Other than that, I mean, I think you just kind of sit and wait for this landscape. I don't know if they're that urgent to spend, and they have the 15 million, they have the 17 million that they would need to get into a conference. But again, why are you paying that and foregoing revenue share when potentially you don't have to? So I think for them, they're okay playing, I don't want to say a long game, but the intermediate game with moving up. And I think there's no harm in saying, hey, we're open for business.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they have a huge, fan base, they have a huge market, and they have money. I think those are the biggest assets that you need. And not the money to buy your way in, but the money to spend on all their facilities and the players and the NIL. So I think for them, it's not a move that would be unexpected. I think the timeline is going to be the big question mark, but I think that will all be predicated on other factors.
Yeah, it's Conference USA, like you were saying, is one of those conferences that might be interested in adding a Texas school. So we shall see. We shall see. A lot of good chats coming in. Thank you guys for being engaged. Again, like and subscribe to the program, and yeah, I'll keep it nice and friendly in there, and that's all we ask.
In response to that, the comment on the screen, there is a hierarchy of the G6 schools. Right now, the American is clear-cut number one in the eyes of, the way they're viewed in terms of the Power Four and the College Football Playoff Committee. Then you probably, at that point, have a mixture of schools in there, whether it's the Sun Belt and the Mountain West kind of intermingling in there as well. And then, yeah, to FCS 24/7. The Mountain West is ahead of CUSA, and everybody's ahead of the MAC at that point. But that's kind of the hierarchy where the American is clear-cut number one. Then there is a step down in terms of how they're viewed, and then the Pac-12 is intermingled in there as well with the Sun Belt, and maybe you can throw in the Mountain West towards the bottom end of that. Then a little gap to CUSA, and then a gap to the MAC.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, up next, the last thing we're going to talk about is the AFCA Top 25 poll has been released. Let's go ahead and pop that sucker in here. And you see Montana State, Montana, South Dakota State, Illinois State, and Tarleton State. They're in the top 5, no surprise. UC Davis, Villanova, Rhode Island, Youngstown State, North Dakota, Lehigh, South Dakota, Stephen F. Austin, ACU, Tennessee Tech, no surprise. Southern Illinois, lots of questions about them. DJ Williams coming back from that injury. We'll talk more about them as the show goes on. Mercer, Austin P, Yale. Here's where it gets a little interesting. Southern Louisiana, Lamar, UT Martin, Monmouth, Northern Arizona, South Carolina State. I don't know that I'd see Monmouth above NAU and South Carolina State at this time. You got a new coaching staff in there. Of course, a lot of history around there, but and then I see Richmond as the first team getting top 25 votes. That's a little bit of a head scratcher for me, Brandon.
Yeah, that's what you hear is the sound of them grasping at straws. I think outside of the top 3, do what you got to do. Again, much respect to Illinois State, but I don't think you can go, wow, it's a magical run to the championship game. And yes, they almost won a championship game, lose all their important pieces offensively, and then go, you know what, we're going to put them there. It's almost like you're looking back at that team and you said, hey, we made a mistake last year, let's correct for the mistake of 2025. That's kind of I would say asinine in some regards, or the fact that you don't necessarily know what's going on. Just because you were wrong last year doesn't necessarily mean you have to make up for it now. So listen, we know the top 3 teams. You can put them in any order outside of number 1 being Montana State. 2 and 3, you can, it's a pick 'em at that point.
Right.
But outside of that, who knows? This could be. Everybody talks about, uh, is the juice still in the FCS after you lose North Dakota State? Yes, this is going to be the craziest top 25. It's going to be the craziest top 10. Playoff seeding is going to be insane this year. It's going to be really fun to watch because there isn't a lot of separation between these teams outside of number 1. And then you could maybe take a small step down to 2 and 3 and then figure out the rest.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see. And, it's funny because you'll see that first week or 2 or 3, it really start to change. And we'll see. We'll see if you have any upsets.
On the FBS front, Florida State was unranked last year. They beat Alabama, and then all those idiots threw Florida State up to number 12, and they went on to win, 3 more games after that?
Yeah, maybe 4. Were they 5-7, 5 and whatever it was last year?
Nobody necessarily knows with these polls. They're just, okay, they were good last year. Championship game runner-up. Well, we have to put them here. It's just, come on. Polls are stupid until the first 5 weeks of the season.
The early ones, the early ones certainly are. The early ones are certainly stupid. Okay, let's get to our Missouri Valley. I always mess it up. Missouri Valley Football Conference preview. We're going to start right here with Murray State, Brandon. The Racers entered the 2026-2020 season with a 1-11 schedule from last year. 1-11, a win-loss victory overall, 1-7 in the MVFC under third-year head coach Jody Wright, who's just 2-22 at Murray State. The Racers play in a competitive conference. There's no doubt about it. Jimmy Ogle is your offensive coordinator and assistant head coach. Co-offensive coordinator and assistant head coach. Jack Walker, offensive coordinator, and Kirk Boatkin is the defensive coordinator. They return a solid number of contributors, roughly 8 on offense and 10 on defense. They scored only 19 points per game last year, allowing 38.6 points per game. That was 117th in the nation, by the way. Murray State rushed for 134 yards per game and passed for 209 yards per game. They're returning the safety Dylan Rousey, who had 139 tackles, led the team, 2.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and a 1 fumble recovery. He was one of the top defenders in the FCS last year. Key losses, overall production, well, at this point, who cares, right? I mean, you went 1-11. It doesn't really matter, but they're bringing in quarterback Colin Shannon from VMI, Kyle Vaca from Eastern Kentucky, a wide receiver, Trey Firestone from Ball State, also a receiver, offensive lineman Carter Stalin from Virginia Tech, Jackson Stein from Utah Tech, Jacksonville State product Jackson Vesey, and defensive back Gerard Mosley from Lindenwood should be some players that will make this team a little bit better, but the MVFC is a very, very tough conference, Brandon. They're going to have to get better very quickly in order to be competitive. They start off with Eastern Illinois, then Middle Tennessee State, Valparaiso, Oklahoma State, which they might beat. Honestly, Oklahoma State was a disaster last year. And then a bye, and then they start off with South Dakota State, and it might get very, very tricky there in conference. Your thoughts on the Racers?
2 good points for the Racers. 2 things that they could pin them to the bulletin board and be happy about. They won their last game of the season, so they're coming in on a good note if we have to look back to last season. I mean, they beat Indiana State. Number 2, it's not going to take much to improve their record from last year. And they do have a couple of winnable games on there. I mean, you take a look at Valparaiso, potentially Eastern Illinois, and then you play Indiana State again, the team you beat last year. So maybe that works out for the best. But this is where the funny part of this whole thing comes in. You mentioned how many guys that they return.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about that with South Dakota State, and that's supposed to be a good thing. And a lot of those guys did not perform well in really tough games. But I'm supposed to go, hey, they're better because those guys are coming back. But if we apply the same argument to Murray State, those guys weren't very good.
Yeah, they were not.
Do we expect them to be that much better?
No.
This team, at best, probably wins 3 games.
Yeah. I mean, you got Valpo. You got Valpo. It's going to be,
Yeah, this may be a 3-win team, and if that, 3 extra win total. Congratulations, but they're the last place team for the reason.
And it's hard. It stinks because Murray's. They actually brought in some really interesting talent, but can they put it together? We'll see. I mean, they've been spinning their wheels for a very, very long time. Yeah,
they've won 6 games since 2022.
Tunksy in here, 2-2. Murray best case is 2-2 entering conference play and then losing until possibly the last 2 games. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, but we wish them all the best. I mean, it's a tough conference. It's a big-time tough conference. Indiana State Sycamores is who we're going to look at next. Finished the season 3-9, 1-7 in the MVFC under 10th-year head coach Kurt Mallory. He's 27-64 at Indiana State. The Sycamores were projected to finish near the bottom of the MVFC, and of course, they certainly did. They are returning that coaching staff there that's been there. Second-year offensive coordinator John Baer, Stephen Morrison, the defensive coordinator in his first season, and Darryl Funk, the assistant head coach and run game coordinator, also returning. They have a strong number of players returning as well, Brandon. Roughly 9 players on offense, 11 on defense, particularly deep in the secondary and edge and offensive line. Some key pieces. The Sycamores had the 114th passing offense in the FCS last year, throwing for just 184 yards per game, 185 yards per game. They weren't much better on the ground, to be frank. They were 137 yards on the ground, 80th in the nation. The Sycamores scored 21 points per game, but allowed 39.6 points per game. And that's where you're going back to, okay, a lot of defenders returning. You were 121st defense in the FCS last year.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah.
But they beat South Dakota State, so, I mean, transitive property of sports.
How does it happen? Elijah Woods, their quarterback, is returning. He had 69% completion rate last year, 1,700 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, plus 645 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns. That was actually 2 years ago. Limited to 2 games in 2025 due to an injury. He is going to be their returner, starter, if he stays healthy. So good for him. Looking forward to seeing what Indiana State can bring. They've got a new quarterback coming in, Brady Allen from Louisville. Supposed to be a talented kid, a big kid. Tyler Stewart from Temple, a wide receiver. Running back Aaron Ball for Illinois. And again, they're starting off with SEMO, then Purdue, Eastern Illinois, Valparaiso. North Dakota is their first conference game there on September 26th. Indiana State Sycamores. Got to be, again, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, their ceiling is 3-4 wins. I firmly believe. I mean, you'll have Valpo. Eastern Illinois could potentially be a victory for them. Eastern Illinois is not a overly great football team. Mm-hmm. Could they get Northern Iowa? I think the thing for them, and yeah, they have a really, different quarterback, I think, than they had in previous years. I don't know how good he is. I don't know how it will work. I don't know how he will gel with the assets around him to this. But I mean, I think they'll be in more games, more so than Murray State. I think they'll hang around probably into the third quarter of a couple more games. So with that, you're giving yourself a chance to win these games. If you're a score down, let's say midway through the third quarter, anything can happen at that point. But I don't really see much by the way of wins against a lot of those ranked teams in front of them. I think they'll play a couple of them closer. I mean, I could see them against Southern Illinois, potentially, Youngstown State, potentially making them 4-quarter games, which, hey, if that's the victory for them. But I don't see them, having the victory on the scoreboard when it's all said and done. But then again, this quarterback could make it work. They could at least be more potent offensively in that regard to turn some games into shootouts.
We should see. I mean, Indiana State, it seemed like they were on the cusp of doing some good things, but they got to put it together and they got to build some momentum. But it's, again, very, very tough conference to get off your foot on those rungs to climb the ladder. Northern Iowa found out they were at the top of the MVFC, and all of a sudden they have had a very, very tough go of it. 3-9 last year, 1-7 in the MVFC last year. Second-year head coach Todd Stepsis is back. It was his first year last year, obviously, when going 3-9. It was a tough go of it. He's in his second year. Defensive coordinator Al Smith returns, as well as some key coaching staff there. So build some of that family type atmosphere, that coaching staff gelling a little bit. They're returning 6 on offense, 8 on defense, including a wide receiver, J.C. Roque Jr. had 56 wide receptions, 595 yards. He averaged 10.6 yards per catch and had 7 touchdowns. Was named to the all MVFC honorable mention team. Also, wide receiver Aiden Price is back. Offensive lineman Jack Hearn took 615 snaps, had only allowed 1 sack. He's a solid blocking offensive lineman. They only returned 1 quarterback with experience. Jackson Daly has been named the starting quarterback ahead of the season, and in a lot of reports that looks like it's who it's gonna be. On defense, you got safety Jordan McLaurin returning and edge rusher Jalen Pettis, as well as just some pieces that kind of provide some depth. But you bring in Vinny Gianforte from Drake as a backup quarterback, Xavier Terrell, a running back from FAU, Kai Black, a tight end from Iowa State, linebacker Andrew Price from South Dakota State, and edge rusher Axel Ramazani from Wyoming. So they're adding some pieces as well. Brandon, you and I, they have had some success in the MVFC. They've been there. They know how to do it, but you're under your second-year head coach. You know, this pressure's going to start building on him if he doesn't pick up some wins and make a difference and impact here in the conference. And, again, it's a pretty good conference because after this team that went 3-9, we're going to start talking about Southern Illinois. That's when it really gets tricky.
Yeah, and for Northern Iowa last year, they had, I believe, and somebody can check me on this, 5 games where the quarterback threw multiple interceptions. You're not winning games that way, especially in the best conference in the FCS. So, I mean, that's rule number 1. You gotta, 1, protect the football. 2, they couldn't run the football at all meaningfully last year. They went through games where, I mean, it's easy to run the football in the third quarter when you're down 24 points. But you're not coming out there establishing the run. You're not coming out there and you know, at least getting to a flow or a tempo of offense. And I think that's the biggest problem. So does it start up front? There's not a lot, and I say this with all due respect. There's not a lot of high school talent that you can go in there and get in that region.
Yeah.
And you take a look at the pecking order of where these guys fall in that region of getting the talent in. They're not beating out Iowa if there is line talent. They're not beating out any of the Dakotas. They're not beating out Montana State in any of that towards that region. They're not beating out Iowa State. That's on par with Iowa. So who are you fighting with for a lot of these? Drake? I mean, it's not necessarily, you know, a bountiful catch for them.
The pipeline needs to stretch pretty far.
They got to find better talent and coach this talent up, and it may be unconventional. Maybe take guys that, you know, may not be the best linemen and tweak your offense into getting these guys and find the best offensive line coach and get these guys better over the course of a couple of years. But I think it's a philosophy change there. I mean, you could just take a look at, okay, they can't run the ball. Quarterback throws a lot of interceptions. What is the root cause of that? Bad quarterback, bad running back? No, that tandem together means it's an offensive line problem. They're not getting pushed. They're not being able to establish a run. And 2, they're not giving their quarterback time to survive.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Haddock bringing in turnovers kill you. Ask me how, and I'll tell you. Well, we'll ask you. I think we know. Here's our look at Southern Illinois. Team came off 7-5 overall, 4-4 in the MVFC under 11th year head coach Nick Hill, extremely respected head coach, and he's only 55-61 at SIU. The Salukis were ranked number 16 in a preseason stats FCS poll, projected to finish around 6 in the MVFC. A legitimate playoff push type team, Brandon, if they can get their offense going. They return the offensive coordinator defensive coordinator is Lee Prochninsky. Whatever. He's in his second year.
Right.
Yeah, something like that. And then Nick Hill calls plays on offense. DJ Williams is returning, 63% completion percentage, 2,846 passing yards, 22 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions, plus 847 rushing yards and 18 rushing touchdowns, an All-American contribution there. The kid's got to stay healthy, though. He is a extremely good talent, and I think the places in these polls rely on DJ Williams. They also return running back Edward Robinson and Chandler Chapman as well. They scored 36.4 points per game, 193 yards on the ground, 239 passing offense. It was the number one nationally ranked red zone offense, by the way, in the FCS. 26.7 points allowed per game. They returned Vinny Pierre Jr., who has 71 tackles last year and tackle and a half for tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, 2 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. The offense returns under that Williams production. If he can stay healthy, we say it over and over again, they can have something pretty special. They do bring in a couple of transfers. Markel Quick from Chattanooga, who had 686 yards, 4 touchdowns in 2025. They bring in Allen Middleton from Bowling Green, an interesting prospect. He returns after a year away, but had strong production prior to this transfer to SIU. They have a big offensive lineman, Louis Gastelum from Albany. They got a guy from Illinois, Kellen Francis. Also they bring Lance Bassett, the name we've kind of been familiar with there at North Alabama as well. So they've got a nice group of transfers that come in to add some depth. They start West Florida, Sanford. You're going to be 2-0 if you're SIU. Then you go SEMO, Illinois. Then you get into your conference schedule at Murray State. Very favorable start to the Salukis. See if they can build some momentum.
Yeah, I want to see what DJ Williams looks like in that West Florida game. I think that's more important of, the stat line that he may put up. I want to see how comfortable he is, how he's moving in that game. There's a potential they score, 40, 50 points in this game. Not a knock on West Florida. West Florida, that's their, first ever FCS game. But I want to see how he looks, not necessarily the stat line. I want to see, eyes on him and see how he plays, because this team has the ability, I think, to potentially be the third best team in the Valley. If he plays up to the standard that a lot of people are projecting him to be at, the ceiling for them, I believe, is third best team in the Valley. That guarantees them a playoff spot.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
the way that we're looking at this is right now there are 6 Valley teams ranked. Are all 6 going to make the playoff? Will they be able to stomach putting 6 in there? I think a lot of eyeballs will be on that as it stands right now. I think they mentioned it early in the chat a little bit ago. I forgot who mentioned it. When you're ranked in the preseason, it's hard to kick you out. That's easy passage number 1 to making it in the playoffs as an at-large. Be ranked in the preseason. That means there's some sort of, belief about you going into the season. So they already have the leg up there. But I think you don't want to be the 6th place team in the Missouri Valley Football Conference, because I don't know if they're going to put the 6th one in at that point. So I think for Southern Illinois, they have the opportunity. Their ceiling, I think, could potentially be the way DJ Williams can play and is projected, and a lot of evaluators believe he can play. This team could be third with their ability to run the ball as well with their line.
Yeah, I saw that FCS 24/7 said all the questions are on defense, maybe in personnel and who they're bringing in, but that offense is you got to produce some points and you got to stay healthy on offense. And it seems like Nick Hill has just hit that injury bug, several years in a row. Just hasn't worked out for him. All right, South Dakota Coyotes finished the season 10-5, 6-2 in the MVFC. Matt Vitztham has been promoted from co-offensive coordinator. He is in his first year as the head coach there, as these coaches continue to jump. At this time, it was Travis Johansson leaving for Rutgers. The Coyotes were ranked number 12th in the preseason stats FCS poll, projected to finish 5th. So you've got some continuity there, but a new head coach nonetheless. You return Charles Pierre Jr., all MVFC rusher in 2024. Running back Carson Fletcher, who had nearly 500 rushing yards. He's as a true freshman in 2025. You got some offensive pieces on the line. You got to replace your quarterback. Linebacker Gabriel Hardman had 90 tackles last year, 5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and 1 interception. Quarterback Aiden Bauman had a great year, Brandon, but he couldn't get South Dakota through some of those tougher games. He is now gone. LJ Phillips Jr., key loss, All-American production. He's also gone. They bring in Jackson Proctor from University of Northern Illinois, previously a Dartmouth starter. They expect him to be the starting quarterback there. Bryce Kuhn from Kansas, a wide receiver. They bring some big guys in for offensive linemen as well. And Tyler Sappett, an edge rusher. And Sam Same from Iowa State. So, again, some pieces being brought in. South Dakota, you kind of expect them to maybe take a step back as the coaching staff changes. New quarterback, but they've got a lot of really strong pieces starting at Central Connecticut State, Northern Colorado, Eastern Washington. Then they have an FBS opponent, Boise State, and MVFC opponent is Youngstown State to start off on September 26th. Your thoughts here on the Coyotes?
Yeah, we saw last year with Johansson taking over the program. They got off to a really slow start. They played an FBS game, lost, and they lost that game by 1 score to Lamar. That's a game that I think they really thought, later in the year, if they would have played that game, had a good chance to go back, they would have won that game going away. I think you have less talent than you did last year. And again, another first-time head coach. I think this dynamic is going to be very different for this South Dakota team. We'll see how it plays out, and it's an easier start to the season. I mean, you could be very well 2-1 by the time you hit that Boise game. You could lose to Eastern Washington. I don't know how that's going to play out. That's going to be a home game for them, but you'll get a couple of buys. In terms of you can have a loss or two, and I don't think it would affect them all that much. So even if you lose that Eastern Washington game and you lose to Boise, if you win the games you're supposed to win, that makes you, let's just say a 9-3 team, 8-4. That's a playoff bound team. I think 8-4 is on the bottom end of that, but 9-3. You know what your target is. So you just have to be that South Dakota team that you got to beat South Dakota State. You got to beat North Dakota. Those are your money games, I believe, for South Dakota. I don't know. It's going to be you're going to learn a lot from them in that Eastern Washington game of how the season played out. If they're lacking in the talent department, it's going to be a really long season for them because I think they'll get by Central Connecticut. They'll get by Northern Colorado. I think, gaps and holes will show up against Eastern Washington. So, I reserve my right to judge them, but I think today, if you ask me, I think they finish behind Southern Illinois, wherever that is, in terms of, where the season will play out for the Valley. So if I say Southern Illinois ceiling is 3rd, then the ceiling for South Dakota and the Coyotes has to be 4 for me.
Wow. All right. I'm with you on that. It is going to be interesting to kind of watch how they fight some of those early games and kind of come together. We shall see. North Dakota Fighting Hawks is who we've got up on the schedule next. And listen, they came in 8-6 last year, 5-3 in the MVFC, including a playoff appearance under second-year head coach Eric Schmidt. Fighting Hawks ranked 10th in that preseason stats poll, projected to finish 4th in the MVFC. Again, second-year head coach. Had a really, really strong lineup last year. Some great players. Jerry Kamansky is returning, 58.4% completion percentage, 2,570 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, plus 607 rushing yards, and 8 rushing touchdowns. Wide receiver ding. 16 receptions. He returns 208 yards, 5 touchdowns, projected to have a larger role this year. They have multiple tight ends, veteran offensive linemen coming back. On the defensive side, edge rusher Lance Rucker, preseason All-American, 64 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 11.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. And edge Caden Vig, maybe the best there in the MVFC. Really excited what they've got. They bring in running back Matt Lawson. Remember, Matt Lawson came over from Illinois State. They bring in Cameron Ware from Washington State and Caleb Goodlow from Bowling Green in the wide receiver room. Defensive tackle Kylan Macklin from UAlbany and Kifa Pereira from Eastern Illinois, now at North Dakota. Ben Kamara and Akron from Akron, Upper Iowa. Avery Dixon transfers in at cornerback, and linebacker Mason Miller from Iowa State has been added. And Brandon, again, a program that's going to have some softer starts, games, competition to begin with. LIU, St. Thomas. Well, I shouldn't say St. Thomas. That's a tough competition, but they should win. Portland State, Nebraska, and then Idaho State is their first game in the MVFC. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, they'll start off 6-1. I mean, the only game that they'll lose in the opening 7 weeks will be on the road at Nebraska Memorial Stadium in Lincoln. The problem is from there is it's not like you're playing, your first 7 games against really overly tough opponents in that realm. They close out the season home against South Dakota State, on the road against South Dakota, on the road against Youngstown, on the road against Illinois State, and at home against Illinois State and at home against Southern Illinois. So you have 5 really tough games that you have to play, and you only get a bye in between Illinois State and Southern Illinois. So that is a really tough run to close out your season. Not a lot of chance to rebound, not a lot of chance to get healthy if guys get dinged up in some of these hard-fought games. So they may be a team that, you look at October 17th leading into that matchup against South Dakota State, that they're 6-1 and they're probably ranked, 5th, 6th, 7th maybe. And South Dakota, they're playing South Dakota State, which should be 2, potentially 3. In the poll at that point. So this will be a huge matchup on paper, but it will be against a team that potentially isn't really that tested, and it may be a very deceiving result at the end of it. But again, they're in a good position being in the top 10 and having a very favorable start of their schedule, that by the time we hit that first magical release of the poll that the committee randomly does, because they all decide they need vacation time and to expense a bunch of hotel rooms, North Dakota will basically have their spot cemented into the playoff as at worst an at-large bid.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what they can do there with that second-year head coach. And Jerry Kamansky, by the way, really exciting player to watch, so it should be fun. All right, let's turn our focus to Youngstown State Penguins. 8-5 last year, 5-3 record in 2025. Of course, Doug Phillips is their legendary head coach. He's 31-35 at the school. They're preseason ranked as number 9 in the stats preseason poll. They return most of their coaching staff. Offensive coordinator Mike Yursich is back for his second year. Defensive coordinator Ryan Romiedo is a new new defensive coordinator for Youngstown State. So we'll see how that plays out. Offensive returners, well, Bo Brungard is the Walter Payton Award winner, 68.7% completion percentage, 3,234 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, plus 1,468 rushing yards on the ground. He returns for the Penguins. That is the big one for Youngstown State. This is a team that's anchored with Bo Brungard, and excited to see what he can do. Michael Wells returns 50 tackles and 15 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, and 11 quarterback hurries there on the defense. They bring in Dorian Williams from Ohio State, a wide receiver, to add some depth there. Lorenzo Jenkins as well out of Bethune-Cookman. Defensive back Dev Hallman from Butler and Roland Collins from New Hampshire bring some depth to the defensive back position. But Brandon, I think it's probably all about Bo Brungard right now, and if he can do what he does, but the Penguins again are going to be a very, very tough team to beat. 36 points last year per game plus. They allowed 31, which is something you want to tick down probably by about 10 points per game. But the offense, if you can score points, you can win games.
Yeah, but they apply the defense optional mantra going out there, and I don't think that's going to be a way to, to live. And something, God forbid, if something happens about Brungard, this team is not winning many football games, and I think that's a really tough way to go about winning football games, where you have to rely on your quarterback health.
Yeah.
Let's just say, because he is everything. He is the offense. He's the distributor,
You do
and
feel
he
that
has
way.
to make
Yeah.
up for the lack of defense. And it's not like they brought in a lot of guys defensively to change the belief of, or the philosophy of, what this team is going to be. So therefore, I mean, Bo Brungard played phenomenal last year, and they won 8 games. They lost 5. I don't see much difference out of that. I can't necessarily say there's more difference out of that, because honestly, you take a look at the way that they played last year. Okay, you translate it to this year. There's going to be a game that they lost. They probably get a couple of stops, score a couple more touchdowns, that they win. There's also going to be a game where Bo Berngard, has a lower completion percentage or throws an extra pick, and they lose that game. So it's all going to, for me, level out in the wash. And this is an 8-5 team, relatively again for them. But they do have the potential to go out there and hang a digit on South Dakota State, and do what they did last year. I mean, they could score 35, 40 points potentially and go, hey, this is the type of game that you may not necessarily want to play. And that back and forth, keep lighting up the scoreboard. But more times than not, especially when you get late in the year, if you get weather involved and you can't throw the ball around the pill, what happens in the third and fourth quarters of those games if they have to rely on their defense to get a stop to get their offense back on the field? I don't know if they're there yet. So for me, it all will level back out to another 8-5 year for Youngstown State.
Yeah, but do you feel like Bo Brungard, because of having another season under his belt, Walter Payton Award winner, just having that experience could be the deciding factor of maybe he's just ticked his game up a little bit, or does he take a step back? I mean, it's a lot of pressure for the young man.
It's tough, and I mean, I would have to look at quarterback wise for Walter Payton Award winners. Just off the top of my head, Heisman Trophy quarterbacks that have to come back the following year. So you get a Mansell, a Winston. Those guys had regressed, slightly. Now they were on magical teams. That's how you win at least the Heisman. You got to be on a very good football team. But those guys generally, statistically, took a step back. It's hard to perform at that same level. Now everybody knows your game. Everybody knows what the philosophy is. And now, just like your locker room is expecting, okay, this guy can go out there and lead us and get us a win, guess what? The other locker room knows the same thing. So it makes it that much more difficult to replicate what you did on a year-to-year basis. So I would have to look back potentially at Walter Payton Award winners that have come back, at least in the quarterback position, over time, if there even are any. It's something I don't know off the top of my head, and see statistically year to year, have they been able to keep on that trajectory.
Yeah, and Tunksy also says Brungard has a lot of wear and tear from all those rushes and hits he's taking. Maybe not in the backfield, but he's definitely a dual threat quarterback. So we'll see how it goes for him. Up next, it's the runner-up in the FCS National Championship game, Illinois State Redbirds. What a season they had. 12-5 overall, 5-3 in the MVFC campaign. Of course, losing narrowly to Montana State in one of the most entertaining national championships you could possibly have. I mean, they were just fantastic. Ranked number 4th in the preseason stats FCS poll, projected to finish 2nd in the MVFC. A little bit of disrespect there under Coach Brock Spack. He's returning a bunch of his coaching staff, including Mickey Turner, who's the offensive coordinator, promoted in 2026 from previously worked with wide receivers and special teams coach, and Travis Niekamp, who's the defensive coordinator. That name sounds familiar. I'm not sure where, but Niecamp's going to be coaching his son again. Their key returners, Victor Dawson, 278 carries, 1,377 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. Dylan Lord at wide receiver, Luke Malander with 44 receptions and 671 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was the MVFC Freshman of the Year in 2025. He's back. Landon Woodard from the offensive line is back, FCS All-American. He has over 1,000 1,000 sacks and only 1 sack allowed as well. Ty Niekamp, we mentioned MVFC Defensive Player of the Year and All-American, 160 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 1 interception, 9 pass breakups. A lot of the core is back, but Tommy Rittenhouse is going to be a big miss. Daniel Sopkowitz, the wide receiver, is going to be a big miss, Brandon. They brought in Cage Roy, a USC transfer at quarterback. Ethan Loss from Butler, an all Pioneer League receiver last year from, Patriot League from last year with returning eligibility. Alex Herrera, the tight end from Eastern Illinois. Offensive lineman Jaden Wedderburn from Princeton, and Duncan McDonald from Vanderbilt, and defensive end Aiden Cannon from Indiana to provide some depth. Projected to have one of the tougher schedules, not just conference, but overall 17th in the nation, starting off with St. Francis in Western Illinois. Should be 2-0. Then they go to FBS Northern Illinois. Then they have Eastern Illinois in the Mid-American Classic, and then start that MVFC schedule. So, Illinois State, a little bit of disrespect, maybe finishing second. I mean, they were runner-up, but I kind of feel like it's probably about right for them. Eastern Illinois, they're losing. They've got some key pieces. They've got question marks still, like QB1 position.
Do they play every freaking team from Illinois? I mean, Chicago State is the only one I don't see on their schedule. And I mean, we can make that happen.
Yeah,
if they need a parking lot somewhere if they have to. I mean, the quarterback position is going to be huge for them. I mean, you lost a lot.
It's
hard for me to go and say, hey, you lost a lot. And there were a lot of guys who played the majority of everything for them. It's not like, hey, we lost a lot of guys, but we had a deep rotation. They were not a deep rotation guy. You knew, hey, snap, throw. You knew where the snap was going. You knew where the ball was going. And 9 times out of 10, you just couldn't stop it. 9 times out of 10, like I said. So I just think for Illinois State, I envision them, and it's not a knock on Brock's back. It's not a knock on the team that's going to be put together. I mean, did they necessarily overachieve? I mean, no, but your record is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You are a 12-win team, but I don't know if you're going to be able, and this is the thing that we've seen credit to North Dakota State been able to do for years. They get those guys up front and they go, hey, we're going to play this brand of football, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. And they were able to get guys in time after time after time after time to do it. I don't know if this is replicable for Illinois State. I don't know if they're going to be able to impose a will on teams necessarily like they did last year. And if that's the case, and you're still trying to figure out QB1, wide receiver, 1 and 2, and how that dynamic is going to play out, I don't know if you can replicate that 12-win season last year. I don't want to call it a fluke 12-win season, but for me, it always kind of screamed to like the old days of the NCAA tournament when you had a bunch of veteran guys come together and it just worked. The team was just, this is a really good team because those guys have been together. They've been in the trenches. They've played, and that's when you see them make it to the Sweet 16. For me, that was the vibe that I'm getting that they had last year. It was just a bunch of guys who had been together for a long time, bought into the belief, and they were able to make it pay off. And a lot of those guys, the vast majority of the guys and the most important guys, ended up leaving the program.
Yeah. It's certainly gonna be interesting because I mean no one really saw it coming from Illinois State last year, and the question is, can they replicate some of those magical moments that they had in 2025? Really tough to do. A really tough conference. No longer have North Dakota State to worry about, but you do have South Dakota State to worry about. The Jackrabbits, they are 9-5, the favorite there in the MVFC. 9-5 last year, had a 4-4 MVFC record. Kind of a head-scratching season last year. People put a lot on Dan Jackson. He's second year as Jackrabbits. They picked to finish third in the preseason stats. FCS poll projected to finish first in the MVFC, as I mentioned. They have offensive coordinator Eric Edson Ness returning for his third season, and Brian Bergstrom, the defensive coordinator, in his fifth season. Chase Mason returns, 64.9% completion percentage, over 2,000 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, plus 174 yards rushing with 6 rushing touchdowns. He went 8-1 as a starter before that injury. And again, we're going to talk about DJ Williams. We're going to talk about Chase Mason. You got to do it for a full season. And Chase Mason has been injury prone, so that is a huge question mark for the Jackrabbits. The talent level's there, but can he stay healthy? Lofton Ogroski, 27 reception returns at wide receiver. Tight end Grayton Gannon, all-conference production last year. Quentin Christensen on the offensive lines also returning, as well as linebacker Joe Ullman on the defensive side with 94 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. Carlin McShane, Dawson Rapierta, Logan Green also on that defensive line. They're a deep defensive linebacking squad. Their leading rusher, Julius Luffridge, is gone. Leading receiver, Alex Bullock, is gone as well. They do bring in Roman McKinney, a running back from Northeastern State, who had over 1,000 yards rushing at the Division II level last year. So can it translate? Question mark. Josh Holst from Northern Illinois is brought in at quarterback to add depth to that position in case Mason can't stay healthy. Cooper Starks from Vanderbilt, offensive lineman, should be a good addition to the program. They also bring in kicker Tristan Alvano from Nebraska. So you got Stetson and Northwestern lead things off. New Haven, Youngstown State, and September 19th. I mean, they're getting a lot of publicity. They're getting a lot. People are expecting a lot of this team, Brandon.
Well, they need to live up to it because remember, the whole conversation from Brookings was we are on par with North Dakota State. We are equal to them, and you've, for lack of a better term, you lost the rabbit out in the front that you chased.
Hey.
And now that's gone. So now you have to stand on your own. You have to put together these results. The thing about this team last year, yes, it was very Chase Mason dependent. Chase Mason was the critical X factor. Repeat the point I said earlier. You had a lot of guys, and I get it. Jimmy Rogers took guys with him.
Mm-hmm.
And the excuse was, then this was an excuse. These guys they're not supposed to be there. They're supposed to be the backups. I mean, what's the excuse for, week 9, 10, 11? They've had all this time to get better, and they did not get better over time. So I think that where it falls on Dan Jackson. I think Dan Jackson walked in there and just thought it was going to be a plug-and-play thing. I'd lay that
Never
at the
is.
feet of Dan Jackson.
Yeah.
I think he thought walking in to be the head coach of South Dakota State, and I think he had in his opening press conference of, we're going to play our brand of football, we're going to do this, that, and the other. It didn't work. And for the first time last year, we saw South Dakota State look bad against good teams. And that was either the result of them losing the game or them giving up a lot of points against teams that they ultimately won. That hasn't been their brand, at least in recent history during this run. I think that's the big thing, and it falls on the feet of Dan Jackson because your offense was horrible after the quarterback got injured. Okay, that's the excuse. What's the excuse for your defense? Because your defense wasn't very good either. Your defense started off games and could not stop, a runny nose at various points. You could not, plug anything defensively. And then they got a little bit better later in the games. And then the offense would make a couple of plays with one of, 3 backups they were rolling up there at quarterback. But again, talent-wise, you can't tell me how much talent. This South Dakota State team has a lot of talent. You cannot tell me this team has all that talent, then make the excuse that they weren't ready to play last year or they weren't, prime. They weren't supposed to be the ones. They were supposed to be the 2. No. This team needs to perform to the level that the expectation. A season like last year, and if Chase Mason gets injured again, I guess you can kind of write it off. I don't think he'll end up getting injured again, but you don't know necessarily with the type of offense they like to run. Their quarterback will take hits from time to time. But anything short than, a Final Four appearance for them is an absolute abject failure. And I think, maybe a little warm at the bottom for Dan Jackson at that point because he'd have to answer a lot of questions because the expectation was a continuation.
Yeah.
And the expectation was set by Dan Jackson when he got hired that this is a continuation of everything that was built there. So it remains to be seen. But I think on paper, the talent that is there, on that field, they should be the second best team when it's all said and done.
Hey, with North Dakota State being gone, something that they're not sad about, I can promise you, puts a lot of pressure on South Dakota State. If they do not finish first in the MVFC, do we start having that conversation of that South Dakota State, the Dakota State rivalry might not been what it we thought it was? I mean, South Dakota State really didn't beat North Dakota State all that much. I mean, it seemed like they when you didn't think they were going to win, they were going to win. When you thought they were going to win, they didn't win. But if they don't finish first, I think you're having a different conversation about what the MVFC is next year and who's going to be at the top of the. And if Illinois State shows up and has another year like they did, I think you got to say Illinois State. All of a sudden, it's moving out of the Dakotas is kind of what I'm saying. Is the MVFC Youngstown State, Illinois State? We're shifting that focus of those top tier out of the Dakotas. That'd be unbelievable.
Yeah, I think the big thing for South Dakota State, at least to start the year, is to quell the conversation. This has been North Dakota State's conference. That North Dakota State basically carried the well and pulled everybody along. I think that's a huge point of emphasis for them. I think not necessarily the players in the locker room, but the fan base of trying to prove that. I've said it on here, and I get it. I'm not really probably welcome in Brookings. They've had a little brother complex about them, and it's been on display numerous times. They were the ones that said, hey, you're not going to lose North Dakota State without us. They need us to move up. Now, granted, North Dakota State had to cut a check, but they didn't need you to move up. Well, they'd still play us for the marker game. That means too much. They looked around and said, don't mean anything to us. We're playing FBS football. So I think for South Dakota State, they have to prove something to themselves, that this wasn't North Dakota State's conference and then everybody else was playing in their sandbox. Could they rule the roost? Potentially. But yeah, if they fall short, this is going to change the whole conversation. I don't think it would be a fait accompli after this year. If there's a step back, if there's a 8-win season, I don't think it would be a anything. 9 wins, I think it's status quo. It's we just go on. I think if it's 8 or less wins, if there's a huge drop off, which I don't expect to be, there'll be a conversation about whoa, we need to stop, giving the benefit of the doubt to South Dakota State. But again, this team is too talented, in my opinion, to be anything less than double-digit wins playing Final Four championship game in Nashville. But we'll see. Again, if that falls short, I think a lot of it will be laid at the feet of the head coach.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be another great conference, by the way. We're looking forward to seeing those MVFC games. I think North Dakota is the sleeper, in my opinion. I think North Dakota really could have a great season, and I think Tunksy mentioned Ken Kamansky do it. Yeah, he had his ups and downs. Does he have the leadership ability? But it's going to be a fun season to watch as we turn our focus to the FCS rivalries that are coming up. August 29th, it's the Citadel versus Wofford. It's the Big Dog Trophy. They're in Wofford. I didn't even know it was a thing, to be honest with you, but apparently that is a thing. But take a look at all the rivalry games with trophies that are going to be in the FCS this year. Illinois, Eastern Illinois State. By the way, you mentioned all the Illinois teams, Brandon. A couple years ago, 20-something years ago, me and my brother went to Chicago to see the Braves and the Cubs at Wrigley Field, right? And we go there on a Friday. We flew in Friday night or Friday afternoon, Friday morning, saw the game. Saturday, we stayed Friday night. Saturday, we got up. It happened to be the first week of college football. So we're literally walking through downtown Chicago and asked a postman, where can we sit and have a Chicago-style hot dog and watch some football? And he gave us a location for a bar. We walked in, and no kidding, every single TV, Northern Illinois, Eastern Illinois, Western Illinois, Southern Illinois, they all were on the TV. And my dad went to Virginia Tech, and my brother went to a school that didn't have a football team, so he roots for Virginia Tech. So he walked in Illinois week 1 of the college football season and walks in and goes, "Hey, bartender, turn one of these TVs to the Hokies game. It's on, Fox." If you could hear the thick necks of the men around me turning, looking at my brother like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" And I said, "Let's go. Let's leave." We left half.
They love their directional state football.
I'm telling you, man.
Direction on it and state on it, and that's all that they have.
Yeah, I guess. But take a look at these rivalry games. Man, football season, it's right around the corner. It's going to be fun, and we're all looking forward to it as we take a look now at our big question, Brandon, for this week. Without the Bisons, does Dakota rivalry, South Dakota State versus South Dakota, now become a defining series in the MVFC, or is a real power struggle going to be between the Jackrabbits, Illinois State, and Youngstown State, as we mentioned before? Who do you see? South Dakota, the marker game's gone. And again, Tunksy's been in the chat. He's been fantastic content, by the way, Tunksy. And also 24/7 FCS. Always Brandon and Stephen McKenzie and Stephen Haddock and all of our friends in the chat. I saw Chris in there as well. And Chicago Dogs. Yeah, Chicago Dogs are awesome. We have a Portillo's here locally in Kennesaw, by the way, Brandon. We need to meet there and have lunch. But okay, sidetracks.
I don't like Chicago dogs.
Oh, you have the Italian. They have the Italian meat sandwich. It's delicious. It's dipped. It's
good au jus sauce.
It's a good au jus sauce, buddy. It's a good au jus. All right. So without the Dakota marker game, what's next? Where are we looking? Is it South Dakota State, North Dakota, South Dakota? Are we looking at that power struggle there, moving out of the Dakotas in your opinion? And chat, throw your comments in there as well as we're wrapping the show up.
Yeah, I think for South Dakota State, the marker game hurts because it meant so much more than the game on the field.
Yeah.
It was one of those. It was a culture war, let's just say, between the two schools. It meant everything to everybody not playing the game. It meant more to those people than I would say the 22 on the field at any given time. I don't think you replicate that. I do think if you give South Dakota State a chance to be the big brother over South Dakota, yeah, they'll take it. They'll love that. They'll love that role to be able to be, hey, with a bell cow carrying it. I don't know if, that necessarily has the same rivalry or the same juice behind it that NDSU had. I mean, that was one of those things where NDSU, SDSU was something that would get mentioned on game day.
Yeah, they'd show up. I mean, weren't they there for they were there
the
marker game.
Yeah, that would be one of the things that they mention, in some of the big matchups. We have the marker game coming up. Yeah, I just don't know if, this, South Dakota State game has that same cachet. But I think for them, they need to be more worried about the power struggle. I don't care if you lose to South Dakota, if you beat Illinois State, Youngstown State, and finish, number one in conference. If South Dakota State loses 2 games and you only lose 1 game, I don't care if that game is to South Dakota. I want to win the conference. I need to win the conference. So I'm the Jackrabbits. I need to take a stranglehold on this because guess what? If there's any necessarily hope of them, I would say, joining North Dakota State in the short term, they need to be as dominant continually. And I don't mean, necessarily, and they had probably, I would say, the greatest 1-year season that we've seen in recent history. But they would need to have more of those types of years. And that's not finished third in the conference. Yeah. 1 year finishing third, I think, undoes everything they need to do. You need to habitually win and go, okay, yeah, see, there wasn't that big of a difference between North Dakota State and South Dakota State. We need the conversation needs to include them. And I think any natural invitation, not buying your way up, would potentially include Montana State, South Dakota State, potentially for the Pac-12 and the Mountain West at some point. But if you finish third and you don't win those games against Illinois State and Youngstown State, you're not playing in the Final Four of the championship game every year. They don't need you. They're not knocking down the door to get you, despite what you want to think. They would not be knocking down the door to get you. They can go and get Montana State, and then go look at Tarleton, and Tarleton go, hey, we'll give you $12 million to be that third team, and they'll go, hmm, what do
Yeah.
we want to do here
Yeah.
at that point? So, but you have to make it undeniable. Like North Dakota State made it undeniable that they deserved to be up there. There were a lot of other factors that prevented them from getting to move up until they stroked the check. South Dakota State needs to make it undeniable that they deserve to be at the FBS if that's what they want.
Yeah. I agree. Hey, Steve McKenzie asking you, Brandon, does North Dakota State moving up to FBS hurt North Dakota similarly how Boise State moving up has hurt Idaho in those rivalry regions?
We'll have to see. We'll have to see. I think for I don't think we can tell the answer in year one. I mean, if North Dakota State comes out and let's say 3 years from now and they go, hey, we'll have the rotation where we'll play, North Dakota in a non-conference game. We'll play South Dakota State in the non-conference game. Every couple of years, we'll play South Dakota in the non-conference game. That would make a lot of people feel good about it. Now, I know why North Dakota State doesn't want to play these games right out the gate because they could very well lose these games right out the gate, and it doesn't look good for them.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it hurts them all in the long run. Potentially, I think Idaho, that whole world is very different. I think for the University of Idaho, I don't know if it's Boise leaving them that hurts them the most because I think Washington State was a bigger rival for them. I mean, 10 minutes away, those campuses are Washington State to the University of Idaho. So I think that that's a bigger thing for them if they can get those games back. That's huge, and I think that's kind of where you lose that realm. But for North Dakota State and South Dakota State, I don't know if it necessarily hurts anybody more so than okay, we lost the marker game. South Dakota State lost a chance to prove themselves against Big Brother. But we'll see how it plays out in the long run. I don't think necessarily it hurts North Dakota State. If you're paying $15 million for something, you want to ensure the investment works.
Yeah, and does FBS football in North Dakota benefit anybody, the Dakotas, North Dakota? I mean, could it be beneficial because people just don't think of FCS fans think of the Dakotas and the Montanas. FBS fans think Ohio, Texas, Georgia. You know what I'm saying? If there's some noise, if the Bisons are able to get in there and make some noise, could it be good? Or maybe bad for the FCS, honestly. But could it be good?
My thing would be, you take a look at that talent base. They can't recruit their state and win. They can't recruit South Dakota and win at the FBS level. Sorry if there's any high school football players in North and South Dakota. They can't recruit Minnesota and win many football games. But I do think that they will live in that realm where they keep that core base in that pipeline. So if anything hurts, I mean, do you take more guys, let's say, that would potentially go to South Dakota State, but if you have a chance to be a number one at South Dakota State, or let's say number two on the depth chart at North Dakota State and play in the FBS and potentially get a good amount of snaps to showcase yourself, okay, maybe in a year I start and I'm the one, maybe I put good enough tape that somebody else in the FBS wants, or maybe at that point, then I go back to South Dakota State. So I think that could be a pathway that ends up hurting schools like South Dakota State, and North Dakota, where that talent pool is already very limited. Guys end up going to North Dakota State because they want a chance to be at FBS if there's an open competition, at least until NDSU fully expands into a national type school where they can go into the state of Georgia. They're not going to the state of Georgia to get talent. They're not going to Florida, Louisiana, Alabama, let's say, to get talent right out of high school. They'll get a lot of guys, on the tertiary, a lot of guys who, it's not their first choice in the Southeast to go there. And there may be other factors like, hey, I'm, number one on the depth chart there going in, or I'm number 5 at Vanderbilt. I wouldn't say Vanderbilt. I take that back. Sorry. If you're number 5 on Vanderbilt, you wouldn't be number 1 in North Dakota State. But I'm number 5 at, let's say, Auburn.
Yeah.
That's where they get those guys, the guys that do show up there from the Southeast, but they're not going in there competing against ACC schools in the Southeast. So until they can expand that, they may take more of the guys that are local to them, or they're portal kings. But I think we're seeing a lot more people, figure out how to work the portal.
Well, and that's the key, because these FBS teams have been working the portal for a long time. Could NDSU look at FCS as a portal because they know the coaches, they know that, or people are just going to be pissed off? And someone mentioned that there's teams angry. They want to see North Dakota State failed because they didn't stay at the FCS level. My opinion, when you see a team like Kennesaw State come out and win the Conference USA and play in the Myrtle Beach Bowl with less than 8,000 fans in the stands, that's to me is the confirmation that a team like Kennesaw State, big school, by the way, not a lot of money for their athletics program, but big school, that they could have stayed at FCS level and been a national championship contender year after year after year after year, and it wouldn't have brought in the revenue, but they're not spending the revenue on football anyway. That to me is where it shows it's a loss. It's a bad decision. When NDSU, whatever conference they win, when they win and they don't get invited to the playoffs, and they're in the whatever bowl, the Potato Bowl, Idaho Potato Bowl, and people are like, "This is what we did this for." Maybe it's the money, maybe, but you won't. Will you see it? That's the kind of circumstance I feel like for those FCS teams that are jumping to FBS. The end game is, I want to play for a national championship. You're completely abandoning that goal.
Yeah, North Dakota State basically said, "Hey, we're jumping because nobody shows up. Nobody cares that we're in the FCS anymore." Well, if they lose to Jacksonville State, which there's a chance they lose to Jacksonville State, they're playing at best for a spot in the Las Vegas Bowl as the Mountain West champion. But they're not going to the college football playoff. And even if they went undefeated and won the conference, guess what? There's still a higher likelihood that they don't make it in to the college football playoff. And I get what North Dakota State fans are hanging on to. And Brett McMurphy trolled everybody perfectly. He put them in there as the representative going, "Hey, I got to put a G6 in. This team could potentially run the table in there." Then all these NDSU fans followed Brett McMurphy, amplified Brett McMurphy, and he became their poster child of, "Look, this is possible." There, he won in that engagement. But let's be honest here. The college football playoff, if there's a one-loss Tulane, if there's a one-loss Memphis, conference champion they're taking over an undefeated NDSU. They do not value the Mountain West all that high. And remember the provision of the college football playoff that they changed this year. It does not have to be the highest G6 champion. It just has to be the highest rated G6 team.
Right.
So you tell me when the last time the Mountain West, I can tell you, it was Boise, was the highest rated G6 school. It was Boise. They're not in the conference anymore. So I think this is going to be it's funny because it's so shiny and new, but I think that everybody's going to quickly see it's not fun when you have to play on the Hawaii Bowl on Christmas Eve, because that's where the Mountain West sends you because you lost one conference game.
Yeah.
And you didn't play for the conference championship, or you lost the conference championship game and there's nothing for you to do but go play in the Armed Forces Bowl at TCU Stadium 4 days after Christmas. Will your fans show up there? Because they showed up in Nashville for a national championship game. They may not have showed up in Fargo for a round one game against an at-large team that they were going to drill by 60 points, but they showed up when it mattered. So I don't know how this plays out for them, but I think a lot of people are going to be watching this. Now, you're not going to see somebody pull in Idaho and go, "We're going back." We're not.
No.
They tried to get UMass to do it. Yeah, they tried to get UMass to do it, and UMass was like, "Yeah, we're bad at football. We're really bad at football. We're not doing that."
Yeah.
That's the one and done scenario. But I think this
and what's
could
the TV
be
contracts, right? I mean, the TV contracts at that level is you get in, the money's exponentially better.
And there's a time limit on this as well. They signed a contract with the Mountain West to say, hey, you pay us this amount of money, then we reevaluate your membership. You got to make some noise in that time frame. But I also think a lot of people can go, okay, all that glitters isn't gold. And I don't think necessarily, I don't want to single out North Dakota State in this. They will be the better of the two that moved up. I think there's a chance Sacramento State turns into a 5-win team. If Sacramento State probably doesn't go to a bowl game, what are you doing all this for?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think a lot of schools will look at that and go, okay, 1, they want us to pay. 2, they want us not to take revenue, TV revenue or conference revenue. And 3, we're playing for what? 1 loss and we get nothing. 2 losses, we may not go to anything meaningful.
It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to watch, and obviously we want NDSU to do well, and those schools that jumped, we want to do well. But it's all about FCS football here. This is why we love it, and it should be interesting. Like Brandon said, we are just a few days away from week 0 getting here. Next week, we will preview the Southern Conference and then jump into we're going to have to decide how we're going to do this, Brandon. How we're going to do, whether we're going to do 1 or 2, or how we're going to do the recaps and then the previews or whatever. But we will have the Southern Conference deep dive next week, and we'll look at week 0. So it should be fun. Brandon, what you got coming up this week?
I'm doing high school football locally in the
Nice.
great state of Georgia, on the #1 state per capita for recruits and NFL players. So I will be calling a high school football game this week.
Great. Well, glad to hear it. Always wonderful to hear you behind the microphone. Thank you for joining. Coach Ron, I know you're watching. I hope you had a wonderful evening with the wifey and enjoyed the movie.
Birthday. Today's your special day. Happy birthday from all of us today.
And I hope that's not copyrighted.
I think it's the Red Lock one.
The chat has been awesome. Tunksy, great to see you in the chat. Also, we had a new name pop in here. That was Seth himself, 97. FCS 24. Steve McKenzie, you're always amazing. Brandon Haddock, Stephen Hotchkiss, all our fans. Damian Zero was in the chat as well. Thank you guys so much. We really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, share this on your social medias, because I'm terrible at sharing this and promoting this program. Well, we don't do it because we want all that many views. We do it because we love FCS football, and we wanted to have a community to talk FCS football. So thank you guys. Seriously, like and subscribe. Share the show with your family and friends and all that good stuff. Next week, we got Southern Conference football deep dive coming up. Brandon, best luck on your broadcast. For Brandon Joseph, I'm Nathan McCreary. Thank you guys in the chat. We'll see you next week. It's the FCS CheckDown. Good. Let's go.